Billionaire's son poured wine on black Waitress. What happened next shocked everyone. What if I told you that sometimes the most powerful lessons come from the most unexpected places? At Rosewood Country Club, where crystal chandeliers cast warm light over mahogany tables and the wealthy gathered for their Friday evening rituals, nobody expected a single moment to change everything. 34-year-old Celeste Williams moved gracefully between tables, her warm smile never faltering despite the long shifts that helped her support her grandmother's medical bills. She'd worked there for 3 years, treating every guest with genuine kindness, even when they barely acknowledged her existence. That evening, 23-year-old Blake Morrison sat at table 7 with his father's business associates, his designer suit worth more than most people's monthly salary. The silver spoon he'd been born with had never taught him the weight of respect, and his privileged world had insulated him from understanding real consequences. But sometimes life has a way of delivering its most important lessons when we least expect them. Where are you watching from tonight? Blake Morrison had never worked a day in his life, and it showed in every careless gesture he made that evening. His father, Richard Morrison, owned the largest construction empire on the East Coast, and Blake wore that legacy like armor, believing it made him untouchable. He'd been drinking steadily since arriving, his laughter growing louder and his comments more cutting as the evening progressed. The other men at his table shifted uncomfortably as Blake's behavior became increasingly inappropriate, but none dared challenge the heir to a billion-dollar fortune. Celeste approached their table with practiced grace, balancing a tray of wine glasses filled with the club's finest vintage. She'd served the Morrison family countless times before, always maintaining her professional composure despite Blake's dismissive attitude. Tonight felt different though, as his eyes held a particularly cruel gleam that made her stomach tighten with apprehension. "Finally," Blake slurred as she approached. "I was beginning to think the help had forgotten about us entirely." His words carried across the dining room, causing several nearby tables to glance over with raised eyebrows. Celeste's cheeks warmed with embarrassment, but she continued forward, determined to complete her service with dignity. "Good evening, gentlemen," she said softly, beginning to distribute the wine glasses with steady hands. "I hope you're enjoying your meal tonight." Her grandmother had always taught her that kindness was a choice, especially when others chose differently, and those words echoed in her mind as she worked. Blake's business companions engaged in quiet conversation about quarterly reports while Celeste served them, but Blake himself seemed fixated on finding fault with everything around him. When she reached for his glass, he deliberately shifted his arm, causing her to adjust her position awkwardly. "Careful there," he said with mock concern. "This wine costs more than you make in a week." The comment hung in the air like smoke, and Celeste felt her heart racing as she fought to maintain her composure. She'd dealt with difficult customers before, but something in Blake's tone tonight suggested he was building towards something worse. The dining room's usual gentle murmur of conversation seemed to fade as other guests began to notice the tension at table 7. Celeste's hands remained steady as she placed the final glass before Blake, but she could feel his predatory gaze following her every movement. "You know," Blake continued, his voice carrying that dangerous edge of someone who'd never faced real consequences, "some people really don't know their place in this world." His fingers drummed against the white tablecloth, and Celeste recognized the warning signs of someone preparing to cross a line she'd never imagined he would dare to cross. As she turned to leave their table, Blake's hand suddenly shot out, and in one deliberate motion, he knocked over his wine glass, sending deep red liquid cascading across the pristine tablecloth and onto Celeste's white uniform. But this wasn't an accident. His eyes met hers with calculated cruelty as he said, "Oops, looks like you'll need to clean up your mess." The dining room fell silent, and Celeste realized that everything was about to change in ways none of them could have anticipated. The silence that followed Blake's deliberate action stretched across the dining room like a held breath. Wine dripped from Celeste's uniform onto the marble floor, each drop echoing in the stunned quiet. She stood frozen for a moment, not from shock at the spilled wine, but from the calculated cruelty she'd witnessed in Blake's eyes. In 3 years of service, she'd never encountered such deliberate malice. "Blake, what the hell was that?" whispered James Henderson, one of his father's longtime business partners. The older man's face flushed with embarrassment as he glanced around the room at the staring faces. "Apologize to this young woman immediately," But Blake leaned back in his chair with a smug smile, clearly enjoying the attention his actions had garnered. "I don't apologize to the help," he said loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "Besides, accidents happen when people don't watch where they're going." His words were carefully chosen to sound plausible to anyone who hadn't witnessed his deliberate actions. Celeste's training kicked in as she knelt to begin cleaning the spilled wine, her mind racing with a mixture of humiliation and disbelief. She'd encountered entitled customers before, but this level of deliberate cruelty was something entirely new. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her memory. "Grace under pressure shows who you really are, baby girl." Drawing strength from those words, she began collecting the broken glass with careful precision. "Here, let me help you with that," said a gentle voice from the neighboring table. An elderly woman named Patricia Coleman, wife of a retired judge, had witnessed the entire exchange and couldn't remain silent. She knelt beside Celeste despite her elegant evening gown, helping gather the larger pieces of glass. "Some people weren't raised with proper manners," she said pointedly, her voice carrying across the silent room. The gesture of kindness from a stranger broke something loose in Celeste's chest, and she felt tears threatening despite her determination to maintain dignity. "Thank you," she whispered, genuinely touched by the woman's compassion. "I can handle this, but I appreciate your kindness more than you know." Blake watched this display with growing irritation, annoyed that his moment of power was being undermined by an old woman's interference. "This is ridiculous," he muttered, reaching for another wine glass from a passing server. "Some people really need to learn their place." His words carried clearly across the now silent dining room, and something shifted in the atmosphere. Other guests began exchanging meaningful glances, and several people pulled out their phones, though whether to document the scene or alert management remained unclear. The Morrison name had always commanded respect at Rosewood, but tonight it seemed to be inspiring something entirely different. As Celeste rose with the broken glass carefully collected in her cleaning cloth, she made a decision that surprised even herself. Instead of hurrying away in embarrassment, she looked directly at Blake and said quietly, "I hope your evening improves, sir. Sometimes when we're hurting inside, we hurt others without meaning to." Her words carried such genuine compassion that even Blake's business associates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. If this moment of grace in the face of cruelty touched your heart, please give this video a thumbs up. The way Celeste chose kindness over anger was about to set in motion events that none of them could have predicted, and Blake Morrison was about to discover that actions have consequences, even for those born into privilege. Blake's face darkened at Celeste's gentle words, interpreting her compassion as condescension. The idea that a waitress would dare to suggest he was hurting inside struck him as the ultimate insult. His privileged life had never taught him to recognize genuine kindness, and in his twisted perception, her grace felt like mockery. "Don't you dare psychoanalyze me," he snarled, standing abruptly from his chair. The movement knocked over his water glass, adding to the mess on their table, but Blake was beyond caring about appearances now. "You think you know something about me? You're nothing but hired help who can't even serve wine without making a disaster." The dining room's atmosphere grew heavy with tension as other guests realized they were witnessing something far beyond a simple accident. Several people had their phones discreetly positioned to record, sensing that this moment would have lasting consequences. Blake's business companions looked mortified, with James Henderson repeatedly attempting to intervene. "Blake, son, you need to stop this right now," Henderson urged quietly. "Your father wouldn't want you representing the family this way." But his words only seemed to fuel Blake's anger, reminding him of the weight of expectations he'd always rebelled against. Celeste remained remarkably calm despite the escalating situation, though her heart pounded as she recognized the dangerous edge in Blake's voice. She'd grown up in a neighborhood where she'd learned to de-escalate tense situations, and every instinct told her to remove herself from this confrontation before it worsened. But something about the watching faces around the room made her realize this moment was bigger than just one entitled young man's tantrum. "I'm going to finish cleaning up and then step away," she said softly, maintaining the steady tone that had served her well through 3 years of difficult customers. "I hope the rest of your evening is peaceful." Her words carried such dignity that several guests nodded approvingly, creating a clear contrast between her composure and Blake's escalating aggression. But Blake wasn't finished. The alcohol had loosened his already weak impulse control, and the presence of an audience seemed to encourage rather than restrain his behavior. "You know what your problem is," he said, moving closer to where Celeste knelt cleaning. "People like you think you can lecture people like me, but you'll never be anything more than Blake Morrison. That is enough." The voice that cut through his tirade belonged to Rosewood's general manager, Robert Thorne, who had been summoned by concerned staff members. A distinguished man in his 60s who'd managed the club for 2 decades, Thorne commanded immediate respect from both guests and employees. "Ms. Williams, please step back and let our cleaning crew handle this. Mr. Morrison, I need to speak with you privately." The intervention created a moment of shocked silence, as no one had ever seen management directly confront a Morrison at Rosewood. Blake's face cycled through confusion, anger, and something that might have been the first flutter of genuine concern about consequences. As Celeste stepped away from the mess, she caught the eye of Patricia Coleman, who gave her an encouraging nod. The elderly woman's earlier kindness had meant more than she could express, reminding her that not everyone shared Blake's cruel worldview. Have you ever faced a situation where someone's cruelty tested your ability to respond with grace? Let us know in the comments how you found the strength to maintain your dignity. What happened next would test everyone's character in ways none of them expected. Robert Thorne's intervention had created a tense standoff in the elegant dining room. Blake Morrison stood frozen, perhaps finally realizing that his family name might not shield him from consequences the way it always had before. The general manager's stern expression made it clear that this situation had escalated beyond what even Rosewood's exclusive membership could overlook. "Mr. Morrison," Thorne continued in his measured tone, "Rosewood has served your family for 15 years with the highest standards of mutual respect. What I've witnessed tonight falls far below those standards." His words carried the weight of someone who'd built his reputation on maintaining the club's prestigious atmosphere, and everyone in the room understood he was putting that reputation above any single member's influence. Blake's business associates sat in mortified silence, realizing their own reputations were being tarnished by association. James Henderson, who'd known Blake's father for 20 years, felt a responsibility to intervene. "Robert, perhaps we could discuss this matter privately," he suggested diplomatically, though his tone made clear he was equally disturbed by Blake's behavior. But before Thorne could respond, something unexpected happened that changed everything. Patricia Coleman, the elderly woman who'd helped Celeste earlier, stood from her table and addressed the room with the confidence of someone accustomed to speaking her mind. "Excuse me, but I think everyone here needs to understand what we just witnessed," she announced clearly. Her husband, retired Judge Coleman, nodded supportively as she continued. "That young woman showed more grace and dignity in the face of deliberate cruelty than I've seen from supposed gentlemen in years. This isn't about spilled wine or accidents, this was about character, and we all saw whose character truly shone tonight." Her words created a ripple effect throughout the dining room. Other guests began nodding and murmuring agreement, and suddenly Blake found himself facing something he'd never encountered: genuine social consequences from his own social class. The very people whose approval he'd always taken for granted were looking at him with disgust rather than deference. Celeste, who had stepped back during the confrontation, felt overwhelmed by the unexpected support from strangers. She'd always handled difficult situations quietly and alone, never imagining that others might witness her struggles and choose to stand beside her. "Mrs. Coleman is absolutely right," added another voice. Dr. Mitchell Barnes, a respected cardiologist and longtime Rosewood member, rose from his. "Williams treat anyone with anything less than genuine kindness. What happened here tonight was unacceptable, regardless of anyone's family connections." Blake looked around the room with growing panic as he realized the tide had turned completely against him. These weren't anonymous strangers he could dismiss. These were the very people whose social circle had defined his world since childhood. His face flushed as the magnitude of his mistake began to sink in. Robert Thorne seized the moment with practiced authority. "Mr. Morrison, I'm going to ask you to settle your bill and leave quietly. Your membership status will be reviewed by our board next week." The announcement sent a shock through the room, as everyone understood that being banned from Rosewood would have serious social implications for anyone in their circle. If you've been moved by this story of character triumphing over privilege, please subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming tales that remind us what truly matters in life. But Blake's night of consequences was far from over, and what happened next would surprise everyone in that room. The walk from Rosewood's dining room to the parking lot felt like the longest journey of Blake Morrison's privileged life. Behind him, the warm light spilling from the club's windows represented a world where his family name had always guaranteed acceptance, but tonight that security had crumbled entirely. For the first time, he faced the possibility that actions might have consequences beyond his father's ability to repair. As Blake sat in his luxury car, hands trembling as he gripped the steering wheel, something unexpected happened. The evening's events began replaying in his mind, but instead of justifying his behavior, he started seeing it through different eyes. Celeste's face haunted him, not the moment of humiliation when he'd spilled wine on her, but her response afterward. Her genuine concern for his well-being, even after he'd deliberately tried to demean her, revealed a strength of character he'd never encountered in his circle of wealthy acquaintances. The following week brought changes that rippled through Blake's entire world. News of the incident had spread through social media and their exclusive social circles, painting a picture of entitlement and cruelty that even his family's influence couldn't erase. Richard Morrison, Blake's father, called him into the office for a conversation that would reshape their relationship forever. "Son, I built this company by treating every worker with respect," Richard said quietly, his disappointment evident in every word. "Your mother and I raised you with every advantage, but somehow we failed to teach you the most important lesson: wealth without character is worthless." The conversation led to an ultimatum that shocked Blake to his core. He would work entry-level positions in the family business, starting with 6 months of manual labor, or lose his inheritance entirely. Meanwhile, Celeste's life took an unexpected turn. Patricia Coleman, moved by the young woman's grace under pressure, had quietly investigated her background and discovered Celeste's dedication to caring for her grandmother while working toward a nursing degree. Through connections in the medical community, Patricia arranged a scholarship that would allow Celeste to complete her education without the financial stress that had forced her into waitressing. 3 months later, Blake found himself working construction on one of his father's job sites, his hands raw from honest labor for the first time in his life. The experience had humbled him profoundly, teaching him to appreciate the dignity of hard work and the character of people he'd previously dismissed as beneath his notice. His co-workers, initially suspicious of the boss's son, gradually accepted him as he proved his willingness to pull his weight without complaint. The most surprising moment came when Blake learned that Celeste worked part-time at the medical clinic where his construction crew was building an addition. Their first encounter since that night at Rosewood was awkward, but Celeste's natural kindness made reconciliation possible. Their conversation, brief but meaningful, allowed Blake to offer a genuine apology that acknowledged the full weight of his actions. "I don't expect forgiveness," he told her honestly, "but I want you to know that night changed everything for me. Your grace taught me more about character than 23 years of privilege ever did." Celeste's response, a gentle smile and words about second chances, revealed the depth of compassion that had impressed everyone who witnessed their first encounter. If you enjoyed this story of redemption and second chances, please remember to like this video, share your thoughts in the comments about the power of grace to transform lives, and subscribe for more inspiring stories that remind us of our shared humanity. Sometimes the most important lessons come from the most unexpected teachers, and real change begins when we finally choose to listen.